The Galactic Council station floated in the darkness of space like a giant metal flower. Its petals were docking bays, and its center held the great chamber where 100 different alien species made decisions for the entire galaxy. The station was old, built thousands of years before humans even learned to make fire. It was a symbol of power and order. Hana pressed her small hands against the viewing window and stared at the stars. She was 12 years old. With bright eyes and a smile that could light up any room, her father had brought her to the station for a special program. Human children would meet alien children and learn about each other. Hana thought it was the most exciting thing that had ever happened to her. "Dad, look at that ship," she said, pointing at a massive vessel drifting past. "It's shaped like a sea creature from Earth." Ambassador Taeyang smiled at his daughter. He was a tall man, with tired eyes and gray hair at his temples. Being Earth's representative to the Council was not an easy job. Most alien species saw humans as newcomers, weak and inexperienced. Humanity had only joined the Council 50 years ago. In galactic terms, that was like yesterday. "That's a Krell warship," Taeyang explained. "The Krell are one of the most powerful species in the Council. They've been exploring space for 10,000 years. Hana nodded, her mind full of wonder. She had already made 3 alien friends during the program. There was Crix, a small blue creature with 4 eyes who loved to paint. Nella, a tall being made of crystal who sang beautiful songs. And Tomek, a furry child who told funny stories. They didn't speak the same languages, but their translation devices helped them understand each other. The program was going well. The children played games, shared food from their different worlds, and learned that they weren't so different after all. Hana showed them videos of Earth's oceans, mountains, and cities. The alien children were amazed. Some of them came from worlds with no water at all. But while the children were making friends, the adults were arguing. In the Great Chamber, Ambassador Taeyang stood before the Council and made his request. "Earth asks for permission to use the trade routes through the Andor sector. We have goods to offer and much to learn from trade with other worlds." High Counselor Vextar, the leader of the Krell Dominion, listened with cold eyes. He was massive, covered in dark scales, with a voice that rumbled like thunder. "Humanity is too young to understand the complexities of galactic trade. Your request is denied. With respect, High Counselor, we've been preparing for this," Taeyang began. "The discussion is over," Vextar interrupted. "Humans must learn their place. You are observers here, nothing more." Other council members nodded in agreement. A few looked uncomfortable but said nothing. This was how it always went. The powerful species made decisions, and the younger species had to accept them. That was the way of the Council. Taeyang felt frustration building in his chest, but he kept his face calm. He bowed slightly and returned to his seat. He would try again another day. Patience was necessary when dealing with the Council. That evening, Hana called her mother back on Earth. She used her personal datapad, sitting in the observation area while her father attended another meeting. The device created a video connection across the light years. "Mom, you should see this place," Hana said excitedly. "The aliens here eat the strangest foods. And Crix showed me how his species paints with their minds, not their hands. It's amazing." Her mother smiled from the screen. "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. Are you being safe?" "Of course. Dad has security with us all the time. Nothing bad ever happens on the Council station. It's the safest place in the galaxy." She had no idea how wrong she was. The explosion happened without warning. One moment, the station was peaceful and quiet. The next moment, fire and screaming filled the corridors. A section of the docking bay erupted in flames. Alarms blared. Red lights flashed everywhere. Hana dropped her datapad in shock. The connection to her mother cut off. She stood frozen, not understanding what was happening. Then she heard people running and shouting in languages she couldn't understand. A security officer grabbed her arm. "Come with me, now." But there was confusion everywhere. In the chaos, Hana got separated from the officer. She found herself in a corridor filled with smoke. She coughed and tried to find her way back to where her father was supposed to be. That's when she saw the Krell enforcer. He was a soldier, dressed in black armor, carrying a weapon that crackled with energy. His eyes locked onto Hana. More specifically, they locked onto the datapad in her hand, which was still transmitting a signal as it tried to reconnect to Earth. In the enforcer's mind, shaped by years of training to see threats everywhere, the device looked like a detonator. The small human child looked like a terrorist. He didn't hesitate. He didn't ask questions. He raised his weapon and fired. The energy blast hit Hana in the chest. She fell backward, her eyes wide with shock and confusion. She didn't understand why someone would hurt her. She hadn't done anything wrong. She was just a child who wanted to make friends with aliens and see the stars. The enforcer moved on, searching for other threats. He didn't look back at the small body on the floor. Security cameras recorded everything. Ambassador Taeyang found his daughter 20 minutes later. He fell to his knees beside her, his professional calm shattering into a million pieces. He held her hand, but she was already gone. The medical team that arrived could do nothing. Some injuries were beyond even advanced alien medicine. The investigation happened quickly. Too quickly. The council examined the evidence and made their decision within hours. Yes, a Krell enforcer had killed a human child, but it was an accident during a terrorist attack. The enforcer had made a mistake while trying to protect the station. These things happened in times of crisis. The council offered their regrets. Taeyang demanded justice. He showed them the security footage. Hana had been standing still, lost, and scared. She had not been a threat. A trained enforcer should have known the difference between a child with a communication device and a terrorist with a bomb. The council's response was cold. The enforcer acted within his duties. He will not be punished. Consider this matter closed. Ambassador, we understand your grief, but the security of the council comes first. High Counselor Vextar added his own statement. Humanity should not have brought children to the station during such dangerous times. This tragedy is unfortunate, but the council's decision is final. If Earth cannot accept this, perhaps humanity is not ready for council membership. It was a threat. Accept our judgment, or be expelled and isolated from the galaxy. Taeyang stood before them, his hands shaking with rage and grief. But he said nothing. He simply bowed and left the chamber. Within a day, something strange began to happen. Every human ship in council space started to move. They didn't ask permission. They didn't explain. They simply turned around and headed back toward Earth. Diplomats packed their belongings. Trade representatives canceled all meetings. Scientists abandoned their research projects. The council watched with confusion. Then, with amusement. The humans were leaving, running away like frightened children. It was proof of what the council had always believed. Humanity was too weak, too emotional, too soft for the harsh realities of galactic politics. Let them go, Vextar said. They'll come crawling back when they realize they need us more than we need them. But he was wrong. Humanity wasn't running away. They were going home to prepare. The galaxy had made a terrible mistake. They had killed a human child and called it acceptable. They had offered no justice and expected humanity to simply accept it. What the council didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that humanity had been hiding its true strength for 50 years. They thought they knew what humans were capable of. They had seen Earth's ships, Earth's weapons, Earth's technology. They had judged humanity as weak. They were about to learn the truth. And it would be a lesson written in fire and steel across the stars. In his quarters on the council station, Taeyang held a photograph of Hana, taken just days before on Earth. She was smiling, excited about her trip to space. He made a call to Earth. It was answered immediately by Admiral Minho, the commander of Earth's defense fleet. She's gone, Taeyang said quietly. They killed her and called it justice. There was a long silence on the other end. Then Minho spoke, his voice hard as stone. Then they'll learn what human justice looks like. I'm sorry for your loss, old friend. But I promise you this, they will answer for what they've done. The call ended. In orbit around Earth, ships that the Council had never seen before began to move. Weapons that humanity had kept hidden for decades powered up. Plans that had been prepared in secret for years were put into motion. The Council thought the matter was over. They were wrong. It was only beginning. Earth had not seen a gathering like this in 50 years. Every leader, every general, every person with authority stood in silence as Hana's funeral was broadcast across the planet. 3 billion people stopped what they were doing to watch. Cities went quiet. Ships in orbit lowered their flags. The world mourned together. The casket was small. Too small. It was covered in flowers from every continent, and beside it stood Ambassador Taiyang, his face empty of all emotion. He had cried all his tears in private. Now, in front of the world, he was stone. My daughter believed in peace, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, but carried to every corner of Earth. She believed that different beings could understand each other. She went to the stars, with hope in her heart, and they killed her for holding a communication device. They killed her and called it acceptable. The footage played on screens everywhere. Someone in Earth's intelligence network had leaked it. The galaxy would see it eventually, but humanity saw it first. They watched Hana standing in that corridor, scared and lost. They watched the enforcer aim his weapon. They watched a child die for no reason at all. The rage that built across Earth was like nothing the planet had experienced in generations. But it was not hot rage, not the kind that made people scream and break things. It was cold rage, the kind that made people plan and prepare. It was the rage of a species that had finally seen enough. In the command center deep beneath Earth's capital, Admiral Minho stood before a holographic display showing the entire solar system. He was a gray-haired man with sharp eyes and a military bearing that spoke of decades of service. Around him stood Earth's top commanders, scientists, and intelligence officers. The Council expects us to forget, Minho said. They think we'll mourn for a while and then go back to begging for their approval. They don't understand who we are. Captain Yuna, commander of the frigate Horizon's End, stepped forward. She was younger than most of the officers present, but her record spoke for itself. Admiral, the Council has no idea what our real fleet looks like. They've only seen our old ships, the ones we built 50 years ago. Exactly, Minho replied. And that's been our advantage from the beginning. Dr. Sora, the lead scientist of Earth's most classified program, activated a new display. Shapes appeared in the hologram. Ships that looked nothing like the vessels the Council had seen. They were sleeker, darker, built with technology that pushed the boundaries of physics itself. The Vanguard Protocol has been our secret for 20 years, Sora explained. While we showed the Council our basic ships, we were building these Wraith-class dreadnoughts with quantum targeting systems, singularity missiles, nanite weapons, and combat AI that can process 1 million tactical scenarios per second. One of the other officers spoke up, his voice uncertain. Doctor, if we reveal all this, won't the Council just adapt? Won't other species copy our technology? Sora smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Let them try. This technology took us 2 centuries to develop. We had to fight each other, destroy ourselves and rebuild, learn every hard lesson the galaxy could teach. The Council species grew up isolated, peaceful. They never had to push themselves to the edge of extinction and back. That's why they'll never catch up. Director Jiho of Earth's Shadow Intelligence Network brought up another display. This one showed the Council's fleet movements, their bases, their supply lines. Every detail was mapped with perfect precision. We've been watching them for 50 years, Jiho said. We know where every ship is. We know their communication codes. We know their battle strategies. The Council thinks we're primitives playing at being spacefaring. They have no idea we've been preparing for this since the day we joined them. Admiral Minho looked at each person in the room. The Council is sending a fleet to Earth. 500 ships. They think it's a show of force, a way to make us bow down. They're wrong. It's an opportunity. An opportunity for what? Someone asked. To send a message, Minho replied. We're going to destroy that fleet, every single ship, and we're going to do it in minutes. Then, the Council will understand. You don't kill a human child and walk away. The plan was simple but devastating. The Council's fleet would arrive through the standard approach route to Earth, passing through the asteroid belt. What the Council didn't know was that humanity had spent decades turning portions of that belt into weapons platforms. Hundreds of asteroids were hollow, filled with advanced targeting systems, power generators, and enough firepower to shred fleets. The moment they enter the belt, we activate everything, Yuna said. They won't even have time to raise shields. What about survivors? Another officer asked. If we do this, we're killing thousands of aliens. Minho's face was hard. They're coming here to threaten us, to force us to accept that our children can be murdered without consequence. Every being on those ships is part of that threat. We'll offer them one chance to surrender. If they don't take it, we'll show them why you don't threaten humanity. The preparations took 24 hours. All across the solar system, hidden weapons came online. Ships that had been disguised as cargo vessels shed their false exteriors and revealed weapons powerful enough to crack planets. Soldiers who had been training in secret for years checked their equipment and prepared for orders. On Earth's surface, people watched and waited. They knew something was coming. The government had been honest with them. The Council was sending ships, and Earth would respond. There would be no backing down this time. Taeyong stood at Hana's grave, a simple marker in a garden outside the capital. Flowers covered the ground around it, left by strangers who had never met his daughter but mourned her anyway. I'm sorry, he whispered. I couldn't protect you. I couldn't get you justice through their system. But humanity will get justice our way. I promise you that. The Council fleet arrived exactly on schedule. 500 ships. All of them modern and powerful, armed with energy weapons and protected by advanced shields. They moved through space in perfect formation, a display of military might designed to intimidate. High Counselor Vex's Tar himself was aboard the lead ship, overseeing the operation. He expected the humans to surrender immediately. They would see this fleet, understand their position, and hand over whoever had leaked the security footage. Then the Council would place restrictions on Earth. Limit their movements. Make sure humanity learned its proper place. The fleet entered the asteroid belt. The largest asteroids drifted past, silent and cold. Everything seemed normal. Then the trap closed. 200 asteroids activated at once. Their surfaces opened, revealing weapon systems that shouldn't have existed. Energy beams, projectile weapons, missile launchers, all firing in perfect synchronization. The targeting was impossible to dodge, calculated by computers that knew where each Council ship would be before the pilots themselves did. Vex Tar's ship shuddered as the first impacts hit. Shields up! Return fire! He roared, but shields meant nothing against weapons designed to punch through them. The first wave of fire crippled half the fleet in seconds. Ships exploded, their reactors overloading. Others went dead in space, their systems fried by electromagnetic pulses. A few tried to fight back, but their weapons hit nothing but empty asteroids. The real weapons platforms were hidden, camouflaged, moving. 8 minutes. That's how long it took. 500 Council ships became nothing but debris and distress signals. Not a single human weapons platform was destroyed. The Council fleet had been annihilated so completely that survivors could barely believe what had happened. Admiral Minho broadcast a message on all Council frequencies. His face appeared on every screen, in every ship, on every Council world. I am Admiral Minho of Earth's Defense Fleet. You came to our home to threaten us. You killed one of our children and told us to accept it. Now you see what happens when you push humanity too far. This was mercy. We destroyed your ships, but we're rescuing your survivors. We're not monsters. He paused, letting the words sink in. You have 48 hours. Surrender the Krell enforcer who murdered Hana. Surrender every Council member who voted to protect him, or we'll show you what humanity looks like when we stop being diplomatic. We have the power to burn your worlds to ash. We've had it for decades. We chose not to use it because we wanted peace. But if you want war, we'll give you a war that you'll remember for the rest of your species' existence." The message ended. Across the galaxy, on hundreds of worlds and stations, beings stared at their screens in shock. The humans, the weak newcomers, had just destroyed a council fleet in minutes. It was impossible. It couldn't be real. But the wreckage floating in Earth's asteroid belt was very real. The survivors being pulled from destroyed ships were real. The message was real. High Counselor Vextar, rescued from his damaged command ship, watched the human rescue teams work with a growing sense of horror. They were saving Council soldiers, healing them, treating them with care and respect. Even after destroying the fleet, humanity showed mercy. What kind of species had this much power and this much restraint? And what would they do if that restraint finally broke? On Earth, Minho stood down from the command center and returned to his office. On his desk was a photograph, sent by Taeyang. It showed Hana smiling at the camera, her eyes full of life and hope. "We're not done yet," Minho said to the photograph. "They'll refuse. They always do. Pride won't let them surrender. And then we'll teach the galaxy what it means to face humanity at war." He was right. 48 hours later, the Council's response came. They refused Earth's demands. They called the destruction of their fleet an act of terrorism. They rallied their remaining forces and prepared for total war. Humanity had given them a chance. They had refused it. Now they would face the consequences. The Council's war room was chaos. Representatives from 50 different species shouted at each other in a dozen languages. Translation devices struggled to keep up with the panic and anger filling the chamber. They had never faced a threat like this before. In 10,000 years of Council history, no one had ever challenged them so directly. High Counselor Vextar slammed his massive fist on the table, creating a sound like thunder. The room went silent. "Humanity has declared war on the Council itself," he said, his voice filled with barely controlled rage. "They destroyed our peacekeeping fleet. They made demands like we are criminals. This cannot stand. We will gather every ship from every member species and crush Earth once and for all." One of the representatives, a small insect-like being named Trell, raised a claw nervously. "High Counselor, the humans destroyed 500 ships in 8 minutes. Perhaps we should consider their demands. One enforcer and a few council members in exchange for peace." "Never," Vextar roared. "If we surrender to their demands, we show weakness. Every rebellious world in the galaxy will see that the Council can be threatened. No. We show strength. We gather 50,000 ships, and we end this human problem permanently." The vote was called. Most species voted in favor of total war. A few abstained. None voted against. The Council had made its decision. Humanity would be made an example, a warning to any who would dare challenge galactic authority. But while the Council prepared their massive fleet, humanity was preparing something else. Colonel Nari stood in the briefing room of Shadow Command, Earth's most classified military facility. She was a small woman, but her eyes held the sharpness of someone who had seen combat and survived. Around her stood 12 operatives, each one the best humanity had to offer. "Our target is the Council Archive," Nari explained, pointing to a holographic display. "The most secure facility in the galaxy. It contains records of every decision, every action, every secret the Council has kept for thousands of years." One of the operatives, a man named Borum, frowned. "Colonel, that facility is supposed to be impenetrable. It's in the center of the Council station, protected by shields, armed guards, and security systems designed by 50 different species." Nari smiled. "It's impenetrable if you approach it normally. But we're not going to approach it normally." She activated another display, showing a complex network of lines and connections. "This is the Quantum Tunnel Network. It's experimental technology, based on research we've been doing in secret. It creates temporary wormholes, allowing instant travel between any 2 points in space." "How temporary?" another operative asked. "Temporary enough to get us in and out before anyone notices," Nari replied. "We'll tunnel directly into the archive. plant our data mining devices, and extract the entire database. Every secret, every crime, every piece of corruption the Council has committed for millennia. Then we're going to broadcast it to every world in the galaxy. The operatives looked at each other. This was beyond a military mission. This was about destroying the Council's legitimacy, showing the entire galaxy what kind of organization they had been serving. When do we go? Borum asked. Tonight, Nari said. While the Council is focused on gathering their fleet, we'll hit them where they're not looking. Intelligence, not firepower. Sometimes the truth is deadlier than any weapon. The mission went exactly as planned. 12 operatives, wearing adaptive camouflage armor that bent light around them, stepped through a quantum tunnel and appeared directly inside the Council archive. The guards saw nothing. The sensors detected nothing. One moment the archive was secure, the next moment humanity was inside. The data mining devices were small, no bigger than coins, but incredibly powerful. Nari placed them at key access points throughout the archive, each device connected to the others, creating a network that copied everything in the database. Thousands of years of information, downloaded in minutes. Borum kept watch while Nari worked. We've got movement, he whispered. Security patrol. 2 corridors away. Almost done, Nari replied, her fingers moving quickly over the device controls. There. Got it. Everything's copied. Let's go. They activated the quantum tunnel again and disappeared, leaving no trace they had ever been there. The guards walked through the archive minutes later and saw nothing wrong. By the time the Council realized what had happened, it was too late. Director Jiho received the data personally. He spent hours reviewing it, his expression growing darker with each file he opened. Finally, he contacted Admiral Minho. Sir. You need to see this, Jiho said. The Council isn't what they claim to be. They're not protectors of galactic peace. They're conquerors who learn to use laws instead of weapons. The files told a story of systematic oppression spanning thousands of years. Species forced into Council membership through economic pressure. Rebellions crushed not because they were violent, but because they asked for basic rights. Entire civilizations destroyed because they refused to follow Council authority, and all of it hidden behind official language and classified reports. Broadcast it, Minho ordered. Every network, every frequency, every world. Let the galaxy see what they've been serving. The information spread like wildfire. On 1,000 worlds, billions of beings watched as their screens filled with evidence they couldn't deny. The Council had committed genocides. They had enslaved species. They had crushed peaceful movements for freedom, all while claiming to bring order and civilization to the galaxy. Protests erupted everywhere. Species that had been loyal Council members for centuries began to question everything. Rebellions that had been suppressed for generations reignited. The Council's authority, built over millennia, began to crumble in days. But Vextar refused to accept defeat. Lies, he declared. Human propaganda designed to divide us. We must stay strong. Our fleet will restore order. 50,000 ships gathered at the Kalari Rift, the only faster-than-light corridor that led to Earth's sector of space. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Representatives from dozens of species had contributed ships, crews, weapons. The Council fleet was magnificent and terrible to behold. Admiral Minho watched their approach from the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Vigilance. It was a Wraith-class dreadnought, black as space itself, covered in weapon systems that defied traditional understanding of physics. They're coming through the rift, Captain Yuna reported from her station. She had been given command of the fleet's tactical operations. All 50,000 ships. They're not even trying to hide their approach. They think numbers will win, Minho said calmly. They don't understand that we're not fighting the same kind of war they know. Earth's true fleet had assembled at the far end of the rift. 2,000 ships, each one a masterpiece of human engineering. They looked small compared to the Council's force, but appearances were deceiving. The Council fleet emerged from the rift and saw Earth's ships waiting. For a moment, there was silence across all communication channels. The council commanders expected humanity to run. Instead, humans were standing their ground. High Counselor Vextar's voice boomed across open channels. Humanity, you face the combined might of the Galactic Council. Surrender now, and we may show mercy. Refuse and we will destroy every human ship, every human station, and leave Earth itself in ruins. Admiral Minho's response was quiet but carried to every ship in both fleets. You killed a child. You refused to deliver justice. You came to our home with threats. Now you face the consequences. This is your last chance to surrender. Abandon your ships, and we'll let you live. Refuse, and we'll show you what happens when you underestimate humanity. Vextar's laugh was ugly and cruel. You have 2,000 ships. We have 50,000. Your arrogance will be your death. Then let's begin, Minho said. The battle started with a simple command. Sunwoo, engage combat protocols. Sunwoo, the tactical AI who had been designed specifically for fleet combat, responded instantly. Every human ship received precise instructions, every weapon system activated in perfect coordination. The humans didn't fight like individuals. They fought like a single organism with 2,000 bodies. The Council fleet fired first, unleashing a wall of energy weapons that should have destroyed everything in its path. But human shields had been designed to absorb and redirect energy. The blast washed over Earth's fleet and dissipated harmlessly into space. Then humanity returned fire. Quantum weapons struck from positions the Council couldn't predict. Singularity missiles created tiny black holes that swallowed entire squadrons. Nanite swarms, invisible to sensors, infiltrated Council ships and dismantled them from within. Every shot was precise. Every attack was calculated for maximum effect with minimum waste. The Council fleet tried to fight back. Their captains were experienced, their warriors brave. But it didn't matter. It was like watching ancient warriors with swords trying to fight modern soldiers with automatic weapons. The technology gap was too great. The tactical coordination was too perfect. Vex's Tar watched in horror as his fleet died around him. Ships exploded. Crews abandoned vessels as life support failed. His communications were filled with screams and distress calls. In 30 minutes, half his fleet was gone. In an hour, 3/4 had been destroyed or disabled. Retreat, he finally ordered. All ships, fall back to the rift. But even retreat was impossible. Human ships were faster, more maneuverable. They cut off escape routes and forced surrender after surrender. The Council warriors, facing certain death, began to give up. They ejected in escape pods, shut down their weapons, and hoped for mercy. Admiral Minho gave them mercy. Human rescue ships moved through the battlefield, collecting survivors, treating wounded, providing aid to those who had tried to kill them just hours before. It was proof of something the Council had never understood. Humanity's strength wasn't just in weapons. It was in knowing when to fight and when to show compassion. 12 hours after the battle began, it was over. 50,000 Council ships had been reduced to 8,000 survivors, limping away from the battlefield. The rest were destroyed or captured. Human casualties, 43 ships lost, 8,000 personnel dead. The disparity was staggering. Vextar, his flagship crippled and surrounded, had no choice but to surrender. Human soldiers boarded his ship and took him into custody. He expected to be executed, to be tortured, to face the kind of brutal treatment the Council often used on defeated enemies. Instead, he was given a clean cell, medical treatment, and regular meals. His guards were professional and respectful. It confused him more than any punishment could have. Admiral Minho visited him personally. The human admiral looked tired, but satisfied, as he stood outside Vextar's cell. "You destroyed our fleet," Vextar said bitterly. "You've won. What now? Will you burn our worlds? Enslave our people?" "No," Minho replied simply. "We're not like you. We don't want conquest. We wanted justice. Now we're going to make sure you face it." "Justice?" You'll put me on trial like a common criminal? Exactly like that, Minho said. You'll be tried for the murder of Hana, for ordering the attempted genocide of Earth, and for every other crime we found in your archives. And the trial will be fair, public, and transparent. You'll have a defense. You'll be allowed to speak. And if you're found guilty, you'll be punished appropriately. Vextar laughed bitterly. Fairness. From the species we called primitive. Maybe that's why we're winning, Minho replied. Because we understand that justice isn't about power. It's about principles. Even for our enemies. He turned to leave, then paused. Your old council is finished. The galaxy knows the truth now. But something new will rise from its ashes. Something better. And humanity will make sure of that. The Galactic Council Station, once a symbol of unity and order, had become a place of chaos and confusion. Ships arrived and departed constantly as species decided whether to stay or leave. Some representatives packed their belongings in anger, declaring that they would never serve the council again. Others stayed, hoping to salvage something from the collapse. The truth that humanity had revealed changed everything. On hundreds of worlds, beings who had believed they were part of a noble alliance discovered they had been serving oppressors. The shame and anger led to riots, protests, and in some cases, full rebellions against local council authorities. Ambassador Do-hyun walked through the station's corridors, observing the chaos with mixed feelings. He was young for a diplomat, only 30 years old, but he had been raised on an alien world as part of humanity's cultural exchange program. He understood both human and alien thinking better than most. It's falling apart, said Nella, his old friend from childhood. She was the crystal being who had been friends with Hana during that terrible cultural program. Her voice chimed with sadness. The council ruled for 10,000 years. Now it's dying in weeks. It was built on lies. Do-hyun replied gently. When the foundation is rotten, eventually everything collapses. Better for it to fall now than to continue hurting people. But what comes next? Nella asked. Without the council, there's nothing to hold the galaxy together. There will be wars, conflicts, species fighting over territory and resources. Do-hyun nodded. Maybe. Or maybe this is a chance to build something better. Something based on truth instead of control. While the political situation deteriorated, Captain Yuna had her own mission. For weeks, she had been hunting for the Krell enforcer who killed Hana. His name was Krex, and he had gone into hiding the moment humanity's military strength became clear. He knew what was coming. Yuna's ship, Horizon's End, tracked him through a dozen star systems. Every time they got close, Krex would flee to another hiding place. He had help from remnants of the old council security forces who still believed in the old ways. Finally, Yuna cornered him on a remote mining station in the Outer Rim. The station was lawless, filled with criminals and fugitives from 100 different species. It was the perfect place for someone trying to disappear. Yuna led a small team onto the station personally. They were armed, but under strict orders, to avoid harming civilians. This was a capture mission, not an execution. They found Krex in a bar deep in the station's lower levels. He was drunk. His massive body slumped over a table, surrounded by empty containers. When he saw Yuna and her team, he didn't try to run. Maybe he was too drunk. Maybe he was too tired. Or maybe he knew running was pointless. Come to kill me, human? Krex asked, his words slurred. Going to shoot me like I shot your little girl? No, Yuna replied calmly. We're here to arrest you. You'll face trial for murder. Krex laughed bitterly. Trial? I was following orders. The council told us that humans were dangerous, that we had to watch for threats. I thought she was a terrorist. I made a mistake that killed a child, Yuna said, and now you'll answer for it. You can come peacefully, or we can stun you and drag you out. Your choice. For a moment, it looked like Krex might fight. His hand moved toward a weapon at his belt, but then he stopped and slumped forward in defeat. I'm tired of running. Do what you want. The arrest was broadcast across the galaxy. Images of Krex in restraints, being led onto a human ship, appeared on every news network. Some species were outraged that humans were taking prisoners. Others were relieved that humanity was showing justice rather than revenge. The trial was held on the council station itself, in the same great chamber where the council had once made its decisions. But now, it was different. Instead of a few powerful beings making judgments, there were representatives from dozens of species, all invited by Earth to observe and participate. Ambassador Jiwan served as the prosecutor. She was a stern woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. A lawyer who had served in Earth's court system for 30 years before joining the diplomatic corps. Krex of the Krell Dominion, she began, her voice clear and strong. You are charged with murder. On the 15th day of the 3rd month, you deliberately fired your weapon at a child who posed no threat to you or anyone else. The evidence is clear. The security footage shows everything. What do you have to say? Krex, cleaned up and sober now, sat in the defendant's area. He had been assigned a defense attorney, a human lawyer named Insu, who had volunteered to represent him. I was doing my job, Krex said quietly. There was an attack on the station. I saw someone with a device that was transmitting signals. I thought it was a detonator. I acted to protect others. The device was a communication pad, Jiwan replied. Standard equipment that millions of beings carry every day. You're a trained enforcer with years of experience. Are you telling this court that you couldn't tell the difference between a child making a call and a terrorist with a bomb? Krex was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice filled with shame. No. I knew the difference. But I was told that humans were sneaky, that they would use children, that we had to treat every human as a potential threat. The council's propaganda got into my head. When I saw her, I didn't see a child. I saw a threat that needed to be eliminated. The courtroom was silent. Beings from 100 species watched and listened. This wasn't just about one enforcer. This was about the entire system that had trained him, that had taught him to see other species as enemies. The trial lasted 3 months. Witnesses testified. Experts explained the technology. Psychologists discussed how years of propaganda could affect judgment. Through it all, Krex sat and listened, slowly coming to understand the full weight of what he had done. In the end, the verdict was unanimous. Guilty of murder, guilty of abuse of authority, guilty of acting on prejudice rather than facts. The sentence was life imprisonment on a monitored world. No torture, no execution, just removal from society where he could hurt no one else. Some humans wanted harsher punishment, but the court held firm. Justice wasn't about revenge. It was about removing dangerous people while maintaining humanity's moral standards. While the trial proceeded, Earth faced its own challenges. High Counselor Vextar had not been captured alone. Several other council members had been arrested, and humanity now had to decide what to do with them. Director Jiho advocated for war crimes trials. These beings ordered attacks on civilian targets. They authorized the use of bioweapons against Earth. They're not just politicians who made mistakes. They're mass murderers. But Ambassador Taeyang, still grieving for his daughter, had a different view. If we execute them all, we're no better than they were. Justice means giving them fair trials, even when it's hard. Even when we hate them. The debate raged for weeks. Finally, Earth's government made a decision. Trials would proceed, but they would be fair and transparent. Evidence would be presented, defendants would have lawyers, and if they were found guilty, punishments would be appropriate but not cruel. It was a radical approach for galactic politics. Most species handled enemies with quick executions or permanent exile. Humanity's insistence on due process seemed weak to some, noble to others. Meanwhile, the galaxy continued to fall apart. Without council authority, old conflicts reignited. Species that had been forced to cooperate under council rule now turned on each other. Trade routes became battlegrounds. Pirates and warlords carved out territories. On Earth, Admiral Minho received reports of the growing chaos with concern. We destroyed the old order, he told his staff. Now we have a responsibility to help build the new one. Sir, We're not peacekeepers, Captain Yuna argued. We're a military force. If we try to police the entire galaxy, we'll be doing exactly what the Council did. No, Minho replied. The Council used force to control. We'll use force to protect. There's a difference. Species that want to build peaceful societies deserve protection from warlords and criminals. We won't conquer them. We'll defend them until they're strong enough to defend themselves. The policy was implemented carefully. Human fleets didn't take territory. They responded to calls for help from species being attacked by aggressive neighbors. They protected trade routes but didn't control them. They offered technology and training to developing species but didn't demand payment or loyalty. It was exhausting work, and not everyone appreciated it. Some species saw human intervention as just another form of imperialism. Others embraced it eagerly. Earth's government struggled to balance its role as protector without becoming the new oppressor. Dr. Sora led the effort to share human technology with other species. But she was selective about it. We can't give everyone everything, she explained to a conference of scientists. Species that are still learning should get basic improvements. Species that are advanced, but peaceful, should get more. But any species that shows signs of aggression gets nothing dangerous. The approach worked slowly but steadily. Across the galaxy, new alliances formed not based on fear but on mutual benefit. Species that had never worked together before found common ground. Trade resumed. Cultural exchanges restarted. And slowly, the chaos began to settle into a new kind of order. But there was still one more piece of unfinished business. High Counselor Vextar, imprisoned and awaiting trial, had managed one final act of defiance. Using smuggled communication equipment, he had contacted loyal forces still hiding in the lawless sectors of space. I'm ordering one last strike, he told them. Not military. Bioweapons. Target Earth's major cities. If I'm going to fall, humanity will fall with me. The weapons were old. Hidden during the Council's expansion thousands of years ago. They were designed to target specific genetic markers, making them perfect for genocide. Vextar's loyalists activated them and launched toward Earth. The attack was detected immediately. Earth's orbital defense grid, one of the many hidden systems humanity had kept secret, activated in response. Laser batteries, missile interceptors, and energy shields created a wall around the planet. The bioweapons never came close to the surface. But the intent was clear. Vextar had tried to commit genocide against humanity. He had failed. But the attempt added another charge to his trial. Attempted extinction of a sentient species. Colonel Nari received new orders. Find Vextar's remaining loyalists. We can't have them running around with access to extinction-level weapons. She assembled her team again. This time, we're not sneaking in. We're hunting them down one by one, until there's no one left who thinks genocide is acceptable policy. The hunt began. Using the Erebus network, Earth's quantum surveillance system, human intelligence tracked every signal, every ship, every movement in the lawless sectors. There was nowhere to hide anymore. Humanity could see everything. One by one, the loyalist cells were found. Most surrendered when they realized they were detected. A few fought back and were destroyed. Within months, Vextar's last supporters were either in custody or dead. The galaxy watched and learned an important lesson. Humanity had the technology to see everything, the power to strike anywhere, but the restraint to use both only when absolutely necessary. They weren't conquerors. They were guardians who took their responsibility seriously. Ambassador Do-Hyun stood before the remnants of the Council and made an announcement. Earth proposes a new system. Not a council of the powerful, but an assembly of equals. Every species gets a voice. Every world gets representation. Decisions are made through debate and voting, not through military force. We'll call it the Federated Assembly. The response was mixed. Some species agreed immediately. Others were suspicious. But slowly, carefully, a new structure began to form. It would take years to complete, but for the first time in galactic history, There was hope for true democracy among the stars. 1 year had passed since Hana's death. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The old council was gone. Its power broken, its crimes exposed. In its place, a new order was slowly being built. The trial of High Counselor Vex Tar was the most watched event in galactic history. Billions of beings across hundreds of worlds tuned in to watch as the former leader of the council faced justice for his crimes. The trial was held in what had been the council chamber, now renamed the Hall of Accountability. Vex Tar sat in the defendant's area, no longer wearing armor or symbols of power. He was just another being facing judgment for his actions. Around him sat representatives from 200 different species, all present to observe and ensure fairness. Ambassador G1 presented the case against him methodically and thoroughly. High Counselor Vex Tar, you stand accused of multiple crimes spanning decades. First, conspiracy to commit genocide through the bioweapon attack on Earth. Second, the murder of Hana through your protection of the enforcer who killed her. Third, crimes against sentient species documented in the Council archives, including the suppression of peaceful movements and the authorization of military strikes against civilian populations. The evidence was overwhelming. Security footage showed Vex Tar ordering the bioweapon attack. Documents from the archives, now public, revealed his involvement in dozens of operations that resulted in the deaths of millions. Testimony from former council members confirmed his role in maintaining the oppressive system. Vex Tar's defense attorney, a human lawyer named Kyung, did his best to provide a defense. He argued that Vex Tar was a product of his culture, that the Krell species valued strength and authority above all else, that Vex Tar truly believed he was maintaining order in the galaxy. My client committed terrible acts, Kyung admitted. But he did so believing he was protecting civilization. The council system taught him that power must be absolute, that compromise was weakness. He is guilty, yes, but the system that created him shares that guilt. The trial lasted 6 months. Every piece of evidence was examined. Every witness was heard. Vex Tar himself was allowed to speak, to explain his actions, to make his case. It was more fairness than he had ever shown to others, and many found that ironic. In the end, the verdict came from a panel of judges representing multiple species, not just humans. It was important that this wasn't just human justice, but galactic justice. The decision was unanimous, guilty on all counts. The sentence was permanent exile to a monitored world. Vex Tar would spend the rest of his life there, alone, except for caretakers, unable to harm anyone ever again. It was a harsh sentence but not cruel. He would have food, shelter, medical care. He would simply never have power over others again. As guards led him away, Vex Tar stopped and looked back at the chamber. You think you've won, he said to the humans present. You think you've built something better. But power always corrupts. Eventually, you'll become what we were. Admiral Minho, present for the sentencing, replied calmly. Maybe. Humans are capable of terrible things. We've done terrible things to each other throughout our history, but we've also learned from those mistakes. We know what we're capable of becoming, and that's why we build systems to prevent it. Your council had no such safeguards. Ours will. Vex Tar said nothing more as he was led away. The galaxy's most powerful leader had become its most notorious prisoner. While the trial concluded, work continued on building the new Federated Assembly. Ambassador G1, having finished her duties as prosecutor, took on a new role as one of Earth's representatives in the formation process. The challenges were enormous. Species that had been enemies for centuries had to learn to work together. Different cultures had different ideas about government, rights, and justice. Some species didn't even have concepts like democracy or individual freedom. But slowly, painfully, the assembly took shape. The basic principles were established. Every species got representation based on population. Decisions required majority votes, not executive authority. Military action required approval from multiple bodies, not just one leader. And perhaps most importantly, there were systems to check power to prevent any one species or group from dominating. Captain Yuna, now promoted to admiral, oversaw the creation of the Assembly's defense force. It was a multinational fleet, with ships and crews from dozens of species, all working under unified command. Their mission was clear: protect peaceful worlds from aggression, maintain trade route security, and respond to humanitarian crises. "We're not the Council's fleet," Yuna told her officers during their first joint training exercise. "We're not here to conquer or control. We're here to protect those who can't protect themselves. Every species in this fleet has equal say in our operations. We make decisions together." It was messy at first. Species that had never worked together struggled to coordinate. Communication problems led to mistakes. Cultural differences caused friction. But over time, the fleet learned to function as a unit. Beings who had once been enemies became colleagues, then friends. Dr. Sora continued her work sharing human technology, but with important modifications. "We're not giving away our most advanced weapons," she explained to a gathering of scientists from various species. "But we're sharing medical technology, environmental systems, communication networks, things that improve life without enabling warfare." The technology transfer created a new era of advancement across the galaxy. Species that had struggled with disease found cures in human medical research. Worlds with environmental problems received help making their planets livable again. Communication became faster and more reliable, bringing distant species closer together. But not everyone was happy with the new order. Several warlords who had carved out territories during the chaos refused to join the assembly. They wanted to maintain their power, their control over local populations. Colonel Nari, now promoted to general, led operations against these holdouts. But the approach was different from traditional military campaigns. Instead of simply destroying them, human forces worked with local populations to build resistance movements. "We give them the tools to free themselves," Nari explained during one such operation. "Weapons, training, intelligence. But they do the actual fighting. It's their world, their freedom. We just help them achieve it." The strategy worked. One by one, warlord territories fell not to human invasion but to popular uprising. The people themselves removed the tyrants. With human support but not human conquest. It proved that freedom taken was more valuable than freedom given. Ambassador Taeyang, still grieving for his daughter, focused his energy on a different project. In orbit of Earth, construction had begun on a massive space station. It would serve multiple purposes: a school where young beings from every species could learn together, a research facility for collaborative science, and a memorial to those who had died during the transition from the old order to the new. The station was named Hana's Light. On the one-year anniversary of his daughter's death, Taeyang stood at the dedication ceremony. Thousands attended, both in person and through holographic connection. Representatives from every species in the assembly were present. "My daughter died because she was in the wrong place at the wrong time," Taeyang said, his voice steady despite the emotion behind it. "The council killed her and told us to accept it, but humanity couldn't accept it. Not because we're violent or vengeful, but because we believe that every life has value. One child's death mattered enough to change the entire galaxy." He paused, looking at the station around them. "This place will be her legacy. Here, young beings from every world will learn together, grow together, become friends just like Hana wanted to do. They'll learn that differences don't have to divide us, that species can work together, that peace is possible if we're willing to fight for it." The station's lights came on, visible from Earth below. It shone like a star, a beacon of hope for the new era. Director Jiho, now head of the Assembly's intelligence services, ensured that the Erebus network remained active. "Trust is good," he said, "but verification is necessary. We need to know if new threats arise, if old problems return. The network stays online, watching, protecting." Some species objected, calling it an invasion of privacy, but Jiho was firm. "We don't monitor personal communications or private activities. We watch for military buildups, weapon development, movements of known criminals. The network exists to prevent another council from rising, not to control daily life. The compromise was accepted, though not universally loved. But it worked. When a group of former council loyalists tried to rebuild their power base in secret, the network detected them before they could cause harm. When pirates attempted to attack trade convoys, response forces arrived before lives were lost. As the second year approached, Admiral Minho prepared to retire. He was tired. Having carried the weight of humanity's military through the most challenging period in its history, his last act was to address the assembly personally. Humanity destroyed the council, he said, standing before representatives of 200 species. We did so because they killed a child and called it acceptable. We had the power to conquer the galaxy, to become the new rulers, to force everyone to obey human authority. He paused, letting the weight of those words sink in. We didn't do that. We chose a different path. We chose to help build something better. Something based on cooperation instead of domination. But that choice only works if everyone commits to it. The assembly only succeeds if every species believes in it. He gestured to the humans present. My people are strong. We have weapons that can destroy worlds, technology that can track any ship anywhere, the ability to project power across the galaxy, but we're choosing to use that power responsibly, to protect rather than control. We're trusting you to do the same. A young ambassador from a newly joined species raised his hand nervously. Admiral, may I ask a question? Minho nodded. Is it true what they say? That humanity destroyed the Council's entire military over one child? Yes, Minho replied simply. It's true. But why? In galactic terms, one life is insignificant. Billions of beings exist across hundreds of worlds. Why risk everything for one child? Why? Minho was quiet for a moment, then spoke with absolute conviction. Because if one life doesn't matter, then no lives matter. Because power without accountability leads to tyranny. Because someone had to show the galaxy that actions have consequences, even for the mighty. He stepped closer to the young ambassador. Your species is new here. You're learning how the galaxy works. What's possible? What's acceptable? So, let me teach you the most important lesson of all. Every life has value. Every being deserves justice. And no one, no matter how powerful, has the right to take life without consequence. Will you enforce that? The ambassador asked. If a species violates these principles, will humanity go to war again? We'll enforce it together, Minho replied. The assembly exists to hold everyone accountable, including humans. If we start acting like the old council, if we abuse our power, then the other species have the right and the responsibility to stop us. That's what makes this system different. No one is above the law. The conversation spread across the assembly, across the galaxy. For the first time in known history, the most powerful military force was voluntarily limiting itself, binding itself to rules and laws that others could enforce. 10 years later, Ambassador Do-hyun stood in Hana's light station, watching children from 50 different species play together. They didn't see aliens or enemies. They saw friends. They learned together, grew together, created bonds that would last their lifetimes. One human girl, about Hana's age when she died, approached Do-hyun. Ambassador, we learned about the Council War in class today. Is it true that everything changed because of one girl? Do-hyun smiled sadly. Yes. Her name was Hana. She wanted to make friends with aliens, to learn about different species, to see the stars. The Council killed her. And her death showed humanity what the galaxy really was. So we changed it. Was it worth it? The girl asked. All the fighting, all the death, everything that happened? Do-hyun looked at the children around them, playing without fear or prejudice. He thought about the assembly, imperfect, but functional. He thought about the laws that now protected everyone, the systems that prevented abuse, the cooperation between species that would have been impossible before. I don't know if Hana would say it was worth it, he replied honestly. She died for something she didn't choose. But her death wasn't meaningless. It became the catalyst for change. Every child here, playing safely, learning freely, exists in a galaxy that's better because of what happened. That's her legacy. The girl nodded thoughtfully and returned to her friends. Do-hyun looked out at the stars, at the ships moving between worlds, at the galaxy that had been transformed. Somewhere out there, on a monitored world, Vex-Tar lived out his exile. The enforcer who killed Hana served his sentence. The old council members faced their punishments. But more importantly, billions of beings lived in a galaxy where they had rights, where they had voices, where they had hope. The transition hadn't been perfect. Mistakes were made. People died. But the alternative was allowing the old system to continue, allowing power to remain unchecked, allowing children like Hana to die without consequence. Humanity had chosen to fight, not because they were violent, but because they cared. Not because they wanted power, but because they wanted justice. And in fighting, they had shown the galaxy what it could become. The assembly wasn't perfect. Conflicts still arose. Species still disagreed. But now they resolved differences through debate and compromise, rather than force and oppression. Now there were laws that protected everyone. Now there was accountability for those who abused power. Earth had not become the new council. They had remained guardians, using their strength to protect rather than control. And slowly, other species were reaching the same level of advancement, the same capability. Soon, humanity wouldn't be the only species with advanced technology and powerful weapons. The balance of power would shift again, but the principles would remain. Every life has value. Power requires accountability. Justice applies to everyone. These were the lessons learned from one girl's death. These were the foundations of the new galactic order. And as Do-hyun watched children from 100 worlds play together in Hana's light station, he knew that her father had been right. They had changed the galaxy. Not through conquest, but through conviction. Not through power, but through principle. The council had killed a human girl. Earth didn't just retaliate. They obliterated the old order and built something better in its place. And that made all the difference.